There exists a man who defies everything our society believes about success, and his mere presence sends shockwaves through the established order. This is the lazy but ambitious man, a figure so threatening to our collective consciousness that we've built entire systems to suppress him. Carl Jung warned us about this archetype decades ago, but society wasn't ready to face the terrifying truth he represented. What makes this figure so dangerous that the world conspires to destroy him before he can reveal the lies we've been told about work, success, and human potential? If you want to understand what's really happening behind the scenes of the human psyche and why this archetype is so feared, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and comment below if you've ever suspected that society is hiding something about the true nature of success. The lazy but ambitious man is not what you think he is. He's not the stereotypical slacker lounging on his couch, dreaming of riches while doing nothing. No, this figure is far more complex and infinitely more threatening to the social fabric. Jung identified him as a shadow archetype that emerges when society becomes too rigid in its definitions of productivity and worth. This man refuses to play by the rules that demand constant motion, endless hustle, and the sacrifice of one's soul on the altar of productivity. Yet his ambitions burn brighter than those who grind themselves into dust. But what happens when society encounters someone who achieves more by doing less? The reaction is immediate and visceral. Fear, resentment, confusion. Because if this man can succeed without following the prescribed path of suffering and exhaustion, what does that say about everyone else who's been trapped in the hamster wheel of modern life? Jung understood that our collective unconscious harbors deep anxieties about work and worth. For centuries, we've been conditioned to believe that value comes only through visible effort, through sweat and sacrifice, through the performance of productivity. The Protestant work ethic didn't just shape our economics, it colonized our souls. We learned to equate our humanity with our output, our worth with our willingness to suffer for success. But then comes this figure who shatters that entire worldview simply by existing. The lazy but ambitious man represents what Jung would call the shadow of our achievement-obsessed culture. He embodies everything we've been taught to suppress: the desire for ease, the wisdom of strategic inaction, the power of waiting for the right moment rather than forcing every moment to be productive. Society has taught us that these qualities are sins, but what if they're actually strengths? What if the lazy but ambitious man has discovered something profound that the rest of us are too terrified to acknowledge? Consider how this archetype operates in the real world. While others burn themselves out with 14-hour workdays and endless networking events, he observes. While others frantically chase every opportunity, he waits for the right one. While others exhaust themselves with busy work, he focuses his energy on what truly matters. This isn't laziness in the traditional sense. It's a radical form of efficiency that threatens everything our productivity-obsessed culture stands for. But here's where it gets truly unsettling for society. The lazy but ambitious man often achieves more significant results than his hyperactive counterparts. He builds businesses while they build burnout. He creates lasting impact while they create impressive-looking calendars. He develops genuine relationships while they collect business cards. His success exposes the fundamental lie that society has been telling us, that suffering equals success, that busy equals productive, that exhaustion equals excellence. Jung warned that when an archetype emerges from the shadow, it reveals uncomfortable truths about what we've been suppressing. The lazy but ambitious man forces us to confront our addiction to performative productivity. He makes us question whether all our frantic activity is actually moving us forward or just keeping us trapped in patterns that serve the system but not our souls. And that's exactly why society finds him so terrifying. The cultural machinery immediately goes to work to neutralize this threat. Media narratives emerge about the dangers of laziness. Success gurus preach even harder about the necessity of grinding. Social media amplifies stories of entrepreneurs who work 100-hour weeks, while quietly burying stories of those who succeed through strategic rest and focused action. The message is clear. This archetype must not be allowed to inspire others. But why is the system so threatened by the idea that someone might succeed without suffering? Jung would say it's because our entire economic and social structure depends on people believing they must sacrifice their lives for success. If the lazy but ambitious man proves that there's another way, the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. Suddenly, millions of people might start questioning why they're killing themselves for jobs that don't fulfill them, for bosses who don't appreciate them, for a system that promises rewards it rarely delivers. The lazy but ambitious man represents freedom in its purest form, the freedom to choose when to act and when to rest, when to push and when to wait, when to engage and when to withdraw. This kind of autonomy is absolutely terrifying to a society that requires predictable, controllable behavior from its citizens. If people start acting on their own wisdom rather than following prescribed patterns, how can they be managed? How can they be exploited? How can they be kept in line? What makes this even more disturbing for the established order is that the lazy but ambitious man often possesses something that eludes the chronic overworkers: clarity. Because he's not constantly busy, he can see opportunities that others miss. Because he's not exhausted, he can think strategically about long-term goals. Because he's not stressed, he can make better decisions. His so-called laziness actually provides him with competitive advantages that no amount of hustle can match. Jung observed that shadow archetypes often carry gifts that the conscious mind has rejected. The lazy but ambitious man carries the gift of discernment, the ability to distinguish between motion and progress, between activity and achievement. He understands that not all action is valuable action, that not all work is worthwhile work, that not all busyness leads to business success. This wisdom threatens a culture built on the assumption that more activity always equals better results. The psychological impact of this archetype on others is profound and often unconscious. People who have sacrificed their health, relationships, and happiness for the promise of success feel deep resentment when they encounter someone who seems to have found a shortcut. But it's not really a shortcut. It's a different path entirely. One that requires different skills, patience, intuition, the courage to trust in timing rather than forcing outcomes. Society responds to this threat by pathologizing the lazy but ambitious man. He's labeled as entitled, unrealistic, or simply lucky. These labels serve a crucial psychological function for those trapped in the grind. They allow them to dismiss his approach without having to confront the possibility that they might be destroying themselves unnecessarily. After all, if his success is just luck or privilege, then they don't have to question their own choices. But what if his success isn't luck? What if he's tapped into something deeper about how achievement actually works? Jung understood that the psyche operates according to principles that often contradict social conditioning. The lazy but ambitious man might be more aligned with these natural rhythms than those who fight against them through constant activity. He works with his energy rather than against it, acts when the time is right rather than when the calendar demands it, pursues goals that genuinely matter rather than goals that look impressive to others. The terror this archetype evokes isn't really about laziness at all. It's about the threat to our fundamental beliefs about how life should be lived. If someone can be successful without being constantly busy, what does that say about the millions of people who are busy without being successful? If achievement doesn't require sacrifice of everything that makes life worth living, why are so many people sacrificing exactly that? Jung would say that the lazy but ambitious man serves as a mirror, reflecting back to society its own shadow. The parts of human nature we've tried to deny or suppress. We've suppressed the wisdom of rest, the intelligence of waiting, the power of selective action. We've created a culture that worships motion over direction, activity over achievement, busyness over effectiveness. The lazy but ambitious man embodies everything we've been taught to fear about ourselves. The most dangerous thing about this archetype isn't his laziness or his ambition individually. It's the combination that creates something entirely new, a way of being that transcends the traditional work-reward paradigm. He proves that it's possible to dream big without grinding small, to have massive vision without micromanaging every moment, to achieve extraordinary results through extraordinary selectivity rather than extraordinary effort. This threatens the very foundation of our economic system, which depends on people believing they must trade their time, energy, and often their souls for money and status. If the lazy but ambitious man demonstrates that there are other paths to success, other ways to create value, other approaches to achievement, then the entire structure of exploitation, disguised as opportunity, begins to crumble. The psychological shadow that Jung identified in this archetype extends beyond individual psychology into collective psychology. Our society has a shadow around work and worth that we refuse to acknowledge. We've made productivity into a religion, busyness into a virtue, and exhaustion into a badge of honor. The lazy but ambitious man forces us to confront the possibility that we've been worshipping false gods, that our entire understanding of human value might be fundamentally flawed. What happens next will either validate his approach or destroy him entirely. Society is at a crossroads. Either we'll continue to demonize and suppress this archetype, driving ourselves deeper into collective burnout and existential emptiness, or we'll finally have the courage to examine what he represents, the possibility of a different way of being human, a different relationship with work and success, a different understanding of what it means to live a meaningful life. The choice we make will determine not just the fate of the lazy but ambitious man, but the fate of human potential itself. Will we continue to force ourselves into patterns that serve systems rather than souls? Or will we finally listen to what Jung tried to tell us, that our shadows often contain the keys to our liberation? The lazy but ambitious man isn't just challenging society's rules about success. He's challenging society's right to define what human flourishing looks like. And that, more than anything else, is why he terrifies us so completely.